Lumma is making another bold impact in the cinema industry with its latest innovation, Magnify 8, a one-of-a-kind experience that offers exhibitors another highly attractive and cost-effective solution besides their well-recognized and celebrated 4D emotion. Magnify 8, a truly distinctive format, features multiple vibration points within the seat, seamlessly combined to feel the power of the movies moving through the body. Each vibration effect is meticulously programmed and perfectly synchronized with the on-screen action. The system is highly versatile, compatible with any type of seat, regular or recliner, new or existing, enabling rapid, scalable rollout across global markets. A perfect value add for premium large screen seating as well as all market sizes and types of theaters.
People are going to be going in very positive, and that will continue into the rest of the conventions, the rest of this year. And that's not just building momentum with the audiences and the films on how they're doing. By the way, it's building momentum within ourselves, meaning exhibition in the vendor community, in our belief that we always knew that our industry was going to be coming back.
This is the Box Office Podcast. I'm Danny Loria, editorial director of Box Office Pro, the pulse of theatrical exhibition. And in this week's episode, we are going to be previewing CineEurope 2026, starting on June 22nd over in Barcelona, Spain. We speak with Lumma's Rolando Rodriguez, who comes onto this podcast to give us a lay of the land as we are about to enter another great convention, bringing together all of the top European chains in one room. That is coming up in the second half of this episode. But before we get there, we've got a heavy news day with a lot of acquisition news to report. Joining me once again on the podcast is Rebecca Pahle from Box Office Pro. Rebecca, lots to cover, though I have to admit, most of my days are, especially this week, have been spent either watching the World Cup or writing feverishly as we finalize our Giants of Exhibition 2026 coverage. I'll start the way we usually do, Rebecca. What's the last thing you saw in theaters?
Oh, dear. Yes, I caught Disclosure Day last night with Eric at the AMC, Times Square, the Prime. I think it was my first time, I think, going to that top floor auditorium since they redid, they added they switched out the recliners, the loungers.
Yeah.
They were great. That was the best part of the evening.
The auditorium. Yeah, and I think AMC has done a very good job with their AMC Prime auditoriums. That's their in-house, exhibitor branded PLF.
And then they have XL as well, which is...
Yeah, that XL, I think, is their economy plus PLF light offering. They're bringing it in.
Half IMAX, it's IMAX, but it's bigger.
Yeah, somewhere in between. I mean, to be fair, and just so our listeners get a lay of the land here in terms of AMC's PLF strategy, AMC has had a very PLF forward strategy over the last 2 years where they're investing rapidly in this. A lot of that investment has gone towards branded premium format auditoriums. They've got an existing deal with IMAX, of course. Dolby Cinema has that exclusive for Dolby Cinema in the US through AMC, although Dolby Vision plus Atmos, which is another Dolby system that is available in other circuits. They just signed a deal with CJ4D Plex to bring in, I believe, both 4DX or ScreenX. I might be mistaken on that. I think it's both. It's definitely 4DX. But on top of all of those, they've got two in-house premium format brands. AMC, I think it's XL, something like that. And that's the sort of entry-level PLF that they started introducing in Europe that they're now integrating into US locations. Their more prominent in-house PLF brand is AMC Prime, which is where you saw Disclosure Day in Times Square last weekend. I've been to that auditorium. I saw Backrooms in that Times Square AMC Prime location. I like it. It's good. I think it's a nice premium fitted place to watch a movie.
Space. I mean, I love seeing something in IMAX, but my gosh, that knee room in those auditoriums for understandable reasons. I mean, you want to pack as many seats in there as you can and keep the eye lines, but Prime was definitely good for. I mean, we started doing the premium, looking through to see what the premium options were. We both are the subscription program with AMC, so it's no extra cost. So it was doing. Closer Day was doing surprisingly well, I thought, for a Monday evening. A lot of that stuff on the premium level was already snapped up, so you definitely see the value from AMC putting so much attention into those.
It's a diversified strategy.
Yeah, because the people are really getting those primo tickets really soon, and you gotta keep going down the list until you find something that's not in the front row. Which good for Disclosure Day, for holding on well. My gosh.
The movie itself, that's what I was reacting to earlier when I was like sharing your dismay having seen the movie. Nothing against the auditorium. The auditorium, I agree with you, is the best part. The movie itself, we profiled it. We did a big push for it.
Mhm.
I had seen the film along with Max Every, who was in last week's podcast. Of course, if you follow this podcast, unless there's something exceptionally positive to share, we're not critics. We're not paid to be critics. So
Yeah, and we're not gonna
we don't want to
slap down.
bury a movie before it goes out. We don't like to contribute to the noise out there that could impact the film's performance. If we were critics, sure, we're paid to do that. But since we're not, we held on to our opinions. Now that the film's out there, folks can make up their own mind. I alluded to this both in the interview I had with David Koepp in last week's episode, the screenwriter of Disclosure Day, and in the analysis segment with Max Every, our guest. I liked it for the first 90 minutes when it's a chase movie. It reminded me a lot of that frantic energy from Minority Report. But once you get to the third act, once the movie gets to where it's going and you settle into the final 30 to 40 minutes, it lost me.
Well, and that's I'd gone in knowing that the third act is where things kind of go off the rails, and I was thinking, okay, what kind of dumb twist are we looking at? What sort of thing is so controversial and divisive with this movie? To find out that it's nothing. Nothing happens. Nothing. This movie is like the primo era Spielberg in his alien groove is like a fresh out of the hopper, like McDonald's French fry. They're perfect, and they might not be like healthy for you, but they just hit the exact right spot.
Yeah.
They're the perfect incarnation of what they are. And Disclosure Day is like if you don't eat all of the French fries and you leave them out in the bag for 2 days, and then you try to like reheat them up in the oven. That's Disclosure Day. It was just stale. It felt like he was on autopilot. Gosh.
Yeah, it didn't work for me either. Ultimately, I think the film suffers from a couple of points, and I've said this in the podcast before. Can we just move on from the glowing orb in any movie? There's too many movies with glowing amulets or an orb that lights up that is central to all the action happening. I understand you need a MacGuffin. That's okay. But can you imagine Cary Grant replacing the Unica key with like something with little light?
It looked like a Wii controller.
No, it's just no.
Yeah.
No, if you're going to go on the MacGuffin route, there's more interesting ways to do it. The glowing orb with lights that has special powers. We've seen so much of that across every genre. I'm just ready to move beyond that for once.
I even like, and I'm not like a huge fan of the franchise, but I think the latest Mission Impossible 1-2 punch, the last 2 movies did that really well with their MacGuffin, where it was just a key. They didn't try to make it anything.
Yeah.
And they let them lead into like the close-up magic element of it,
right.
And
there's ways to do it.
Emily Blunt holding on to a Wii control, and this movie is just full Spielberg face. Everybody looks like they're on the verge of tears all the time.
Well, that's how we felt, I think, going into the last half hour of Disclosure Day. Ultimately, this was a movie that I think played for an older crowd. Our colleague Max Every said that the main demographic here would be the boomer generation. And he was right. And I think that's part of the reason why we nailed it with our forecasting. Before release, we forecasted an opening weekend in the mid $40 million range. Our main comp, we said from the start, was going to be a Nope from 2022, which in itself felt like a Spielberg movie. just by Jordan Peele. It was a very similar sort of marketing campaign where the first part of the marketing campaign really leaned on the mystery, Pandora's box aspect.
And then the second part was just like, oh, no, we're going to go for the spoilers.
Exactly. And the second part goes for, hey, directed by, and also here's big plot reveals. It was a very similar game plan, I thought, between both films. And the performance was almost dollar to dollar the same. $44 million opening for both of them. Now,
biggest difference is Nope is good.
Well, that's a big difference. And also, Nope ended up legging out to $123 million domestic. I'm not sure that Disclosure Day is going to get there for a number of reasons. I think the first one, that B Cinema score locks in to your core audience. I don't think there's going to be a crossover audience here.
Yeah. And
that's
Spielberg gets a lot of grace from, I think, people who grew up with his films for our generations, for older generations. I mean, Nope is they're bringing back a big series of at Lincoln Center, I think, where they're screening a bunch of conspiracy type films on 70 millimeter, and they're bringing Nope back for that. So, like, I got to get but like, I can't see Disclosure Day having that sort of
it's not going to have that,
like.
It would fit into the theme, right? But I don't think it's going to have that sort of appeal when it comes down to it. Crucially, the lowest adult demographic on opening weekend for Disclosure Day were 18 to 24-year-olds. And that tells you something, because the whole topic of conversation that we've had is that the movies that sandwiched the release of Mandalorian and Grogu, which was Obsession the week before Mandalorian and Grogu, and then Backrooms the week after, they ended up winning those younger crowds and ended up taking over, becoming cultural moments because that embraced that younger audience. Meanwhile, the largest demographic audience segment for Disclosure Day's opening weekend was 55 plus, which is great because it was able to hit, I think, its primary demographic. But it's an issue when you realize that this is, as Matt Savory put it in last week's podcast, a one quadrant movie. Yeah. This is a movie for 55 plus audiences. We know that's been the toughest segment to get back to theaters. And that's why I don't think this is going to leg out to the 120s. I think realistically, $100 million might be your target here. And that's still not going to be, let's say, a guarantee for Disclosure Day deep in its run.
Yeah, and the 44.5 million opening, I mean, that's far from bad. So I don't think it's indicative of older generations not coming back to the movies. But as we know, they are not to the degree that younger generations are. And I think this is sort of movie that could have made, like, only a Spielberg directed movie. Like, Spielberg's the only person who could have directed to this movie to 44.5, I think.
Yeah,
like, he has the goodwill, he has the cachet. Like, this is like Martin Scorsese getting like a nice screen count for a Netflix theatrical release. Like, this is a one director situation.
No, and I'm cheering for the creative team there, of course, and we're happy to support all the films coming out. We don't have to like everything that comes out. We're very much against burning a movie before audiences get a chance to see it. That's not us. We are not access journalists.
We want everything to work.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. We're on team exhibition all the way. So we'll give everything, as much for a runway as possible. But ultimately, we have to look at the performances and we have to be objective and bring in also our subjective perspectives on why performances are the way they are. And the one thing that I think we have to add to the core argument that this was a movie for older audiences from an established director at a time when younger audiences and emerging new directors are very much of the moment. So it was the wrong movie for the wrong time, unfortunately. Beyond that, we previewed it in last weekend's episode where you had the NBA Finals with the number 2 media market, or number 1, depending on who you ask, here in the United States, involved in winning the NBA championship over the weekend. Well, so a lot of attention was there.
While the Brazil fans of the World Cup come into Times Square, that's why I saw Disclosure Day on Monday. Right? You couldn't pay me to go anywhere close to Times Square.
You called it, right? You had on Saturday night not only everyone celebrating the Knicks win here in New York, but you also had the crowd coming back from the World Cup match in New York as well, sort of descending into Times Square. And at least the World Cup thing, that's not a New York thing. So you could say, like, okay, so you lose a major media market's focus, but you still have a national focus. The reality is the World Cup opened over the weekend. A lot of attention was there. I ended up seeing, every single match, and I know I'm fanatic about that. By the way, we're recording this on the day that Mexico plays its second group stage game. So I'm
So
very
I'm
much.
just gonna just let me know when that starts because I know not to email you.
Yeah, I won't be around. I won't be answering that. No, but it's not only a World Cup, it's a World Cup being held in the United States. And on top of it, that first round game that the United States had, I believe it was on Friday, opening night
Against
of
Paraguay,
disclosure
yeah.
day. It's the best game I've ever seen any U.S. team play ever. And I've been watching that team since I was a kid. They've never played a game that good. So you're
And I
competing with
saw
a lot of
yeah.
different elements.
Yeah, I watched that game. I don't really watch soccer. I don't, but it's like it's on Tubi. It's free to access. Two of the main AMC locations in New York City or in the country really are the Times Square Empire 25 or the 34th Street that is right next door to Madison Square Garden.
And don't forget
You could not pay me millions of dollars to have gone there that
No,
past
it was
weekend.
tough because there's a lot of attention on other things, right? If you're in New York, Knicks winning the championship that weekend, plus a World Cup game happening the same weekend in New
Plus,
York. You go to LA, Rebecca, where the
Mhm.
other top performing cinemas in the nation are. LA hosted the opening match of the United States at the World Cup on Friday night, on opening night
Mm.
of this movie. It was always going to be an uphill battle. We warned our audience that this would happen. And now, based on the demographics and the B cinema score, I just don't think this is going to find a wider
No.
audience later into the release. That's why I don't think a $123 million domestic benchmark, the way we had with Nope, that also opened to $44 million in 2022, I don't think it gets to that 123 mark. It gets maybe to 100, but that's really where we're targeting the performance for this film.
Yeah. Though, I mean, we did see some limited releases do well, kind of lower down. Lionsgate The Furious, which I am seeing tomorrow.
I saw that last week. It was
Oh,
fun.
I'm
It was
excited.
fun.
I'm excited. And
I'm not. It's already out there. I'm not the biggest fan. It has a fantastically positive Rotten Tomatoes critic score.
Mhm.
I wouldn't call my review of it positive. Again, it's already out.
It's no The Raid. Like,
Oh no, nothing. I was hoping
yeah.
it would be right, but it's
Mhm.
nothing close to the Raid. But it's among the best fight choreography of the last 3 to 5 years. So if you're into that, this
Yes,
will
yeah.
give you that. I think the film lacks in a couple of critical elements to the point that I wasn't on board with it as I walked out of The Furious. But it was a great time, and I think it's
Mhm.
definitely worth a watch if you're into action
Yeah.
movies. And that did really well in moderate release. And we're going into a weekend right now where unless your obsession, there's no guarantees because Toy Story 5 is coming out, and that is going to be the biggest opening weekend of the year so far. Might end up being the biggest opening weekend of the year up until December 18th, when Avengers, we expect to claim that title. Right now, Toy Story 5 is looking like an opening weekend between 160 to 175 million dollars, and that might even be conservative by some of the models we're seeing. This is going to be the event movie up until we get to December.
So we have this one opening higher than Inside Out 2.
That's what our forecasting panel is seeing. I think at this point, 150 is something we're confident in, and the 160 to 175 range is as good as we can anticipate. Now, please understand from our forecasting panel, we get insights from a number of different circuits that play to a number of different demographics. There is a chance that this performs better in circuits that are more family friendly. So that's why I'm saying if the performance we've seen regionally is national, expect 175 plus. But there's a chance that we're maybe overvaluing this based on the forecasting panel.
Yeah, I mean, our panel,
like
like the industry at large, is it's largely focused on so it's not a New York and Los Angeles business.
exactly. And you need New York and Los Angeles to more or less perform. So I think right now 160 to 175 is where we're expecting this. It would be a massive opening weekend, the best in the franchise for Toy Story. I believe the best opening weekend for the franchise was 120 from Toy Story 4.
Disney's killing it on animated sequels, whether it's Pixar or something like a Zootopia or a Moana 2. I mean,
It's doing well, right? And I think this is going to be one of those great weekends for the entire industry. As I mentioned, we're expecting a lot from that movie. And from there, it's going to be really competitive to sort of stand out. We expect Week 2 drop for Disclosure Day, over 50%, unfortunately. Is it going to be something as steep as 70? I hope not, but maybe the 50, 60% range weekend 2 drop. Obsession is still holding on. I was looking at the numbers, Rebecca. Obsession is going to hit $200 million this weekend.
It's such a good. I wonder what the statistics are on rewatches for that, because it's such a good rewatch movie.
For $17 million opening, that's a word of mouth machine and a rewatch machine at this point. Okay, there's a really good chance that it overtakes The Devil Wears Prada 2 in terms of domestic gross, which is incredible. I mean, for a movie that opened to $17 million, for a movie of this nature to break out the way it has and hold on the way it has, it's something unbelievable to see. Now, I do think
it's reminding me of Sinners, which, I mean, obviously that's a movie that opened low, had an amazing multiplier, and that was from a more established. I think Sinners made close to 300 million, and then an Obsession's not going to get there. I don't think it's going to be one of the top 10 grossing domestic earners of the year, but it's a similar sort of trajectory, and something that's an original story that feels fresh, that spreads through word of mouth, and it's just fun.
That's at the heart of it, right? Whether it's good or not is a little bit beside the point. It's a fun movie to watch, and it's a fun movie to talk about. It's a fun movie to discuss with someone else. And I think that's been part of the success of that movie. So we expect another strong hold for Obsession deep into its run. As I mentioned, we do expect that to cross 200 million domestic by the end of the weekend. That wraps up our box office analysis segment, because we do have to talk about some acquisitions here happening in the marketplace. Let's talk about the big headline that we got at the beginning of the week. Showcase Cinemas, formerly known as National Amusements, or at least that was a holding company that the Showcase brand operated under. When David Ellison and Skydance took over Paramount, they made it very clear that the movie theater part of National Amusements would sell. Showcase has cinemas in Latin America, in the UK, and in the US, mostly in the northeast corridor of the United States. The 13 Showcase locations in the US have now sold to Belgium's Kinepolis, who, get this, Rebecca, now own 4 regional chains in North America. They've got Imagine, they've got MJR, they've got Landmark Canada, and now with Showcase, they're all being operated as individual brands. And if you add up those 4 circuits, Rebecca, you're going to end up with a top 10 circuit here nationally. Now, our Giants of Exhibition ranking, which we're currently putting together, it won't be reflected on that because those chains show up independently. But you add them all together, if it's not top 6, it's definitely top 10. And you add into the mix the story that also came out late last week, that IPIC, most of the IPIC locations are now going to CMX. That means CMX is climbing up in our rankings. Now, we've been getting in touch in CMX. We're still waiting for word back from their leadership. Anthony, Raphael, check your emails. You've got several ones from my side to confirm a couple of details.
Please, the production deadline's looming.
It's looming. I don't want any complaints in case we don't get your responses in. But we are waiting to hear back from CMX. If you add those IPIC locations to CMX, CMX is back in the top 10. Now, I don't know if they're going to be operating. I know IPIC still stays as an independent brand. I don't know how we'll end up listing them, depending on CMX's preferences. But CMX, part of Cinemex in Mexico, firmly in terms of what they have here in the US, a top 10 exhibitor in North America, and Kinepolis out of Belgium also sneaking in through acquiring regional chains. This is a trend that's not going to stop. And this is part of the mergers and acquisitions scenario that we've been seeing since the pre-pandemic days, of a number of big circuits getting bought and sold to multinational circuits in a number of different deals.
Even something like Alamo that's acquired by Sony.
Yeah, and Sony in itself is a massive, massive company, right? Part of this conversation also has to include the fact that the Department of Justice has now approved the Paramount Warner Brothers merger. Really, the only thing standing in the way of this being a reality is state attorney generals to come in and sue to block the move. And even then, I'm not exactly sure how that's going to impact. I know there's a financial imperative and a financial penalty that Paramount is going to be paying if this extends beyond Q3 of this year.
Is that the fee that they're paying to Netflix, or is this a separate?
I believe that's a fee to Warner Brothers shareholders, if I'm not mistaken.
That's right. That's right.
In order to just make sure this gets wrapped up. So there's a time frame here where the already expensive acquisition of Warner Brothers gets more expensive if anything gets in the way. With DOJ clearing the road for this to become a reality, you would think it gets wrapped up sooner rather than later, but it's all down to the state attorney generals. Can they get organized? Can they make compelling arguments? Are they going to delay this so this is too expensive for Paramount to execute? Or are they going to be coming in with compelling arguments that block a merger that seems to be already in place? And to be completely honest, it does look like this acquisition, barring a special maneuver from a potential lawsuit from state attorney generals, it does look like the Paramount Warner Brothers at this point, with the DOJ approval, is going to be put in place. I was reading the closing statement from the Department of Justice on its website. And I have to be upfront with you, Rebecca. This isn't us sharing an opinion on the merger happening or not, or whatever the ownership is. What I'm about to share with you is a reaction to a document posted on the Department of Justice's website, sort of arguing why they didn't see any potential implications or problems or damages that could be caused by this merger. And I will admit that it is one of the dumbest takes on the industry I have ever read. It reads like a D- midterm at a bad film school on a freshman film class.
Somebody's trying to hit that word count.
No, it is either a product of willful ignorance or complete incompetence. I have to genuinely tell you that. Now, that's not saying that there aren't good arguments to have this go through. I'm sure there are somewhere, but I am just reacting to this statement from the Department of Justice, which is shockingly naive, if not willfully naive.
What are some parts of this that they?
I'll give you the the highlight here, and I'm going to be quoting from the document.
I'm scrolling through it now, and my eyes are
no,
losing
quote, the
focus.
transaction
so you do the work for me.
Quote, the transaction is not likely to harm competition in studio development, production, or distribution of films for theatrical release. Instead, the evidence shows extensive competition within the industry, which has generated greater output and diversity of film offerings and is likely to continue unabated. It's hard to buy that, but let's look at the examples that the Department of Justice cites for saying what they just said. Quote, for example, non-legacy studios have been successful in developing, producing, and distributing films with significant budgets above $100 million, with additional large-budget films soon to be offered in theaters by studios, including Lionsgate, Netflix, A24, and others. Moreover, recent box office successes since the announcement of the transaction show that a studio's legacy does not determine whether it can succeed at developing, producing, or distributing in the domestic box office today.
What does that have to do with anything?
Including, for example, Amazon MGM with Project Hail Mary, A24 with Backrooms, Lionsgate with Michael, and Blumhouse with Obsession. Note that they use Blumhouse instead of Focus or Universal. That's a cute little trick. No one's buying it. But let's clarify what they just said. They cited the only A24 movie to ever gross over $100 million. The only one in Backrooms, as a reasoning as to why there's plenty of competition out there from all of these different distributors that are going out there and producing these big movies that can produce at the box office, and it's not really down to them buying a studio. Now, if you
I would describe that as a Hail Mary argument.
If you do that, you're essentially picking out the exception and calling it the rule. It is absurd to look at the performance of Backrooms and Obsession, and even Project Hail Mary from a brand new studio, by the way, and say, this is a trend. It's not a trend. It's an exception. It's something that's just happening in the moment, and they're being either willfully ignorant or incompetent in their understanding of the industry in cherry picking these examples to put out there. I am sure there's plenty of reasons why the Department of Justice gave its closing ruling, allowing this to happen, but none of those legitimate reasons are in the document that they put out. This isn't something against Paramount. This isn't something against Paramount's legal team that put out their efforts and their arguments. This is just saying that the reasons that the Department of Justice is citing for letting this deal go through are either ignorant or incompetent.
Well,
It
it's
is some of
logically
the
fallacious.
stupidest analysis I have seen in my career in this industry. I struggle to take the Department of Justice's reasoning seriously. That doesn't mean that I don't understand the value that Paramount Skydance brings to the industry with a Warner Brothers in there. That doesn't mean that there aren't certain ways that the industry can evolve or move forward or change. Of course, this isn't a reflection at all on the Paramount side. This is a criticism of what I consider to be a massive mishandling of this case by the Department of Justice. Because based on what they put out there, this is an embarrassment in misunderstanding the industry as it operates today.
They clearly don't think they need to convince anybody with
No, I mean, they're clearly operating in a universe independent of the way that people in this industry work and operate. And it's a pity because we know this isn't a Hollywood question. This is a hometown cinema question that's going to affect local communities, not only in this country, but all over this world, and cinemas and cinema workers globally. It is incredibly unfortunate that this wasn't at least considered with the seriousness it deserves. And that's not a criticism on anyone else other than the Department of Justice and their handling on this case based on something that they willingly published out there. Some of the most embarrassing takes on this industry that I've ever read. I've read better analysis on Reddit box office posts. But that's neither here nor there. Extremely frustrating, extremely disappointing. But what do you expect? I mean, if this is the way things are going again, I'm a little concerned as to how other industries are approaching potential antitrust issues moving forward.
It feels a little bit just people are trying to squeeze as much money out of various industries, not just this one, as they can, and it's disappointing as people who want to see the industry grow.
Yeah, no, and let's take that as a sort of jumping off point to get a more positive bent here, because we can share our frustration with the DOJ's understanding of this matter, or at least total lack of understanding on this matter, which is 100% obvious by reading those statements. Let's focus on the things that we can control. Let's focus on the things that we can count on and the people actually working and making a living in this industry to improve it, to make it better. Based on that, we have a fantastic conversation with Rolando Rodriguez from Lumma, speaking about CineEurope 2026. The event is coming up on June 22nd in Barcelona, Spain. On Sunday the 21st, Lumma and the ICTA are holding special seminar sessions with demos. So if you're heading over to Barcelona, make sure you check out that ICTA program in the International Cinema Technology Association's website to be able to be part of that. It's free for exhibitors. I highly recommend that program. I've attended it in the past. But this is a great conversation with Rolando and Rebecca, where we go over everything happening in Europe today and some of the great growth that we've been seeing on the PLF side, like we opened the episode with, right? So without any further ado, let's leave the DOJ to somehow put off its dumpster fire. Let's focus on the good things that we have ahead of us, and we do have a lot of positive to celebrate. Coming up after this commercial break, my interview with Lumma's Rolando Rodriguez.
HeyLED by Time Weighing, your premium LED solution partner. With 15 years of experience in cinema technology, we're redefining the movie-going experience. 27 DCI certifications, 60-plus global installations, stunning HDR visuals, and immersive spatial experiences on screens from 4 to 28 meters. From standard optical lens, front access to our acoustic transparent panels, HeyLED has the right solution for every cinema. Visit CineEurope 2026, booth 802, Barcelona, June 22nd through June 25th. Learn more at timeweighing.com.
And we are back here in our special CineEurope preview episode with our friend and colleague, Rolando Rodriguez from Lumma 4D Emotion, makers of that 4D Emotion technology and Magnify 8, available at more theaters near you because, Rolando, you guys keep growing. It's great to have you back on, my friend.
Well, Dania, thank you. It's a pleasure to always be here. And look, growth is good. It's good to see the industry moving in the same direction, and we're happy to be a part of it.
Hey, how about that box office, huh? We've been saying it for a while. Wait for the summer, and it's red hot. And what I love about it is you'll have your big blockbuster IP movies, and then out of nowhere, these small movies, in quotes, small because they were anything but, from these YouTube creators. Rolando, the kids are back. I don't think they ever left. It's been terrific seeing this great influx of audiences just driving what we expect to be a $10 billion plus 2026 here for the domestic market.
Yeah, and look, I think when you start thinking about where we started at the beginning of the year and the thought process of the industry, most forecasters had it between 9.2 and 9.3 billion. And now what you've seen is when you see movies like Obsession, right? Backrooms, and you see movies like Scary Movie, and these films that really nobody had in their radar about what the potential was. And they now have found a tremendous audience that in many cases we had lost for a while and has now built up the industry into leading into what looks like, as you just stated, a $10 billion or possibly 10 billion plus 2026, which by the way, speaks fantastic for the industry and what then that will lead to 2027. So you see the recovery moving much faster is our
Oh,
hope.
2027 is the big year. I've been saying this for a while now. It's great that 26 is performing the way it is. By the way, we were some of those forecasters that thought it would be a 9.2 to 9.5 billion year. I've never been happier to be wrong. If you ask my wife, I'm wrong very often. But I hope I'm not wrong about the $10 billion mark because I think we really have a potential right now to not only set a benchmark in this post pandemic era, but then build from it. That frankly, the last time we were this close was that summer of Barbie Oppenheimer, that we got stuck in our tracks because of that strike that completely derailed us and just threw us to another loop. That was another example of a red hot summer, but that ended, in a sort of not cliffhanger, but let's call it an unhappy ending where we really couldn't build from that success. That's not the case here, Rolando. It looks like everything is in place to not only set a new benchmark, but to build on it because 27 looks fantastic. Over at Lumma, you guys are involved in getting some of the biggest movies coming out in theaters and putting all of the motion seating effects, all of the environmental effects that you have in your technology and making them available to audiences. You have a very good view at some of the big movies that are coming out in the next 18 months. What are your expectations coming not only into this summer, but into this ramp up for what we really expect to be a great year in 27?
Well, I mean, that's such a, not only valid, but great point that you just made, Daniel, because when you think about it, the films that have been carrying the beginning of the summer period, as I just mentioned, most of them were unexpected films to do okay. We haven't even entered the period where you're going to have, you know, Toy Story, you're going to have Odyssey, you're going to have Spider-Man. I mean, we haven't even hit what we would say is the films that everybody's thinking are going to carry the summer, right? And it's being driven by great films that are finding new audiences, and in particular, we're seeing the Gen Zs and actually the young audiences coming back to the theaters, which, by the way, is a perfect status for the products that we offer, right? On the 4D motion and Magnify 8. So, when you think about a Toy Story that's going to be fabulous for our 4D motion and Magnify 8, but you look at an Odyssey, you look at a Spider-Man, these are films that are, the Minions. I mean, there's going to be a lot of key films that still haven't even hit the marketplace. So the excitement is building. More importantly, the momentum is building for the industry. And you're going to see that carry through the fall. And then you head into the Christmas season, which is going to be another phenomenal, hopefully, finish for the industry. So look, we're very bullish on not only from a product provider, but obviously, as you know, my blood runs through my veins on exhibition. And so I'm very happy to see all of the exhibitors out there starting to do well. getting their companies back, in place, and then the investments that are taking place, which is good because they have the capital to invest and keep building the theater's innovations.
Talking about those innovations in the summer slate, something really interesting happened in the marketing campaign for the Odyssey that I want to highlight with you. In that, I don't know if you saw this clip of Tom Holland, who's not only in Spider-Man: Brand New Day coming in late July, but he's also co-starring in the Odyssey. He was asking for viewers to go into their Letterboxd accounts, where I think we might age out of Letterboxd, you and me, Rolando, but
Yeah.
it's what the younger kids like to do to engage with
Yeah.
film culture. But Tom Holland was encouraging folks to go to their Letterboxd accounts and list all of the different formats that they're watching the Odyssey in. What I like about this is that when we talk about PLF, it's no longer an IMAX only conversation. And let's be frank, that's what the case was 20 years ago.
Yeah.
PLF was led by one company, great company, by the way. I love what they do, but it wasn't the full picture. And that's one of the big aspects that I really want to get beyond in movie marketing as we move forward, letting folks know that there is more than just one premium experience. There are several very different premium experiences. And you guys would know because you have two products in 4D Emotion and Magnify 8, both premium experiences, but both very different ways of enjoying the same movie. Can you talk to us a little bit about that importance in letting the viewer know that just because you've seen the movie once, there's still a completely different way to experience this that you might not even know about and that might be interesting to come in for a second repeat viewing?
Look, you're absolutely correct. And I think, first of all, IMAX has built a tremendous brand and they're a great organization, as you mentioned, and doing extremely well. But then that's obviously pushed the envelope where a lot of consumers are looking at differentiating points of how they want to view their films. So IMAX will continue to do well. The PLFs, that are basically the branded products from many of the exhibitors that are doing them themselves, doing extremely well. But then you think about what those large screen formats were, thinking back 20 years ago or 10 years ago or 5 years ago, it was speaking about the large screen, right? And the sound system. If you look at the evolution of that premium experience, it went from the large screen, 60, 70-foot screen, to introducing the Dolby Atmos, or in IMAX, their proprietary sound system. And then there was a third evolution. They introduced the recliner seats, right? So all of a sudden, that was the third step. Well, here's where we come in. Now the recognition is that the consumer for the price value relationship wants more engagement with that screen and what's happening. That's where 4D emotion and Magnify come in. And by the way, we're seeing that cross fertilization of these products into the large screen formats and outside of the large screen format. So the consumers sometimes want this experience in the large screen format, but more importantly, they're chasing this experience in their own environment, a 4D emotion total auditorium or a Magnify 8 total auditorium. And basically what they're looking is they want that full immersion, right? That we provide with what's happening on the screen. And we take great care of ensuring that from a strategic and artistic perspective, what's happening on the screen is duplicated on the seat. And that's very exciting because, frankly, if you think about it, we've been in the amusement park business. We've been around for 19 years, and that's what amusement park rides are. I just came from Disney Paris, by the way, and it was the 3D glasses, it was the large screen, it was the mobile seats, right, with the air, the water, and the whole immersion. And that was the ride. Well, guess what? We're duplicating that now in the theater environment.
And 19 years, yes, in the amusement park category, a decade in the cinema category. You guys aren't the new kids on the block here anymore. 10 years, cinemas in every continent, if I'm not mistaken, and growing. Can you talk a little bit about that footprint from Lumma? Because do I have this number right? You guys grew by over 25% year over year.
Actually, I'll correct you. We grew by over 35% year over year. So we're very pleased to call that. And you're right. Thank you for that shout out on our 10th anniversary because this is a big year for us. And by the way we're starting the year, it looks like we're going to far exceed that 35% growth in 2026. So we're very very excited. And look, I'm part of an amazing family group at Luma. We have incredible associates. We have amazing partners, entrepreneur partners, and Marco, Sebastian, Gabriel, and Antonella that started this company and have built it to what it is. And I came in about a year and a half ago as a partner, and it's been one of my most exciting and dynamic experiences that I've had in this industry in over 40 years. So I'm really excited about what we're doing because we're building a product that's built to last. Think about this: in 10 years, none of our customers have ever had to pay for a spare part. That is an incredible commitment of standing behind your product. And then we have people like Marcos and Sebastian and Gabriel and Antonella that are constantly innovating and saying, what's next? What should we be doing next for that product? And that's important because we should not rely or lay on our laurels about what this product should be or what the evolution of this product is. The consumer continues to look for different and more, impactful things. And we're going to be at the cutting edge of that. And we have a great group that will continue to do that.
By the way, you guys are all going to be at CineEurope coming up, and we're previewing that event in this episode. For those folks attending CineEurope in Barcelona that want to check out that Lumma technology in action, I understand you have a demo scheduled on Sunday, the 21st. That is the day before the kickoff of the event. Many folks, like I have for many years, land either on the Saturday or the Sunday. So they get their bearings, they get their time zones under them. Can you tell us about that ICTA event that you'll be hosting and how people can sign up and attend to check out your theater technology in action?
Well, fantastic. Thank you for calling that out. So, yes, the event is on Sunday, the 21st. It's part of the ICTA tour, and it's going to be at the Yelmo Maquinista Theater, where we're very proud to have our 4D emotion there. That's been an incredible success. We're going to have a panel discussion as part of that. By the way, the buses are going to be leaving at 9:40 a.m. on Sunday. All exhibitors are welcome, and there is no cost associated with it. And they can also sign up through ICTA as well for the event. And that's going to be very exciting. We're going to have a 4D motion presentation that's going to be driven by the Yelmo management team. That will also be followed by a panel discussion where we have other, premium formats that are going to participate in instead of just 4D motion. And we're going to talk about how these premium formats are helping the industry and exhibitors with incremental attendance and driving their ROI. So that'll be an important discussion. But in addition to that, clearly people can come and visit us in our booth at 301 at the showcase, obviously all week. And we're going to have all of our partners there. So we'll be glad to meet with you, and we'll be displaying both of our products, our Magnify 8 and our 4D motion. And then we're also giving a presentation on Tuesday at about 10 a.m. in the main auditorium to all exhibitors, presenting our product on the big stage to everyone. Followed by that afternoon again at about 1 o'clock, we're going to also be making a brief presentation at the ICTA Technology Forum. So multiple different places where people can come visit us. We love to see you at our booth at 301, or please enjoy one of our presentations at either ICTA on Sunday, ICTA on Tuesday afternoon, or the main auditorium on Tuesday morning at 10 a.m. We love to see all of you and have a great discussion and engage you on what this great product can do for you.
And we anticipate this to be another great year over in Barcelona for CineEurope. A lot of momentum, a lot of big headlines. I'm sure you've heard, Rolando, Kinepolis, one of the leading circuits in Europe, investing more and more into the U.S. We know they already have part of MJR over in Michigan. We saw the acquisition of Imagine earlier this year. In the North American market, they got Landmark of Canada, the number 2 circuit there. And just these last couple of weeks, word finally came in that the 13 remaining Showcase Cinema locations have now entered an agreement to be acquired by Kinepolis. You know Juicebert and Daddy Duquesne as I do. great folks, wonderful, very welcoming people. It's great to see them really expand what's been known as one of the leading circuits all over the world, now being a bigger part of the North American market.
Look, I have to say both qualify because I think that both Eddie and Yost are great friends. Number one, I think very highly of both of them. They're amazing entrepreneurs. They are fully committed to the theatrical experience. If you spend 5 minutes with them and don't walk away with their passion about the movie theaters and their future, then you miss knowing them because they are incredible about the theatrical experience. And the good news is that they see, right? These are individuals that are believers that built their brand internationally in Europe. And now they see the opportunities of growing their brand and entering North America. They did it with Landmark, several years back. And that was a great experience for them. And they're continuing that, as you just mentioned, with MJR, Imagine, now Showcase Cinemas. And if you look at the platform that they're building, is not just in the upper Midwest, right? Because if you looked at Imagine and you looked at MJR, they were kind of in the Midwest corridor. And now they're broadening into the coast, right? Because they're taking in Showcase that'll have, Boston, and it's going to have New York. I think part of it is Ohio. So it's a great fill in that they're doing in the US. And I expect that their growth opportunities, obviously, I have no knowledge of it, but I'm sure knowing Eddie and Yost, they're going to continue that growth and expand, in the US to build a great brand. By the way, their service is incredible, their belief in their people, and they build great theaters. So all of those components line up with the needs of our industry and where it's going.
Yeah, I think there were a lot of questions in the industry as soon as we heard that the Ellisons had taken over what used to be National Amusements, now Paramount Skydance. And in our end of the conversation, we all really wanted to have Showcase, which is one of those historic theater chains in the Northeast. I mean, been part of our industry for many decades. We wanted them to have the right sort of ownership, to have the right home. And it looks like they have. Honestly, the Kinepolis group, that they know movie theaters, are very passionate on this industry. I'm really looking forward to see what they can do with a wider footprint in North America. Let's go back to the event here because it's going to be a packed schedule here, Rolando, starting on Monday, June 22nd. With the CineEurope business sessions powered by my colleagues over at the Boxoffice company. From 9 to 12, you'll be able to hear a number of panels and presentations on the industry. I want to bring up a quick little aside here that we're both involved in about our Blue Ribbon initiative. The Blue Ribbon list is something that Box Office Pro introduced this year to recognize the most exceptional new builds and renovations in the industry since 2020. Any movie theater that has opened or reopened since 2020 anywhere in the world can submit an application to be included in this list. It's judged by a panel committee of industry experts and veterans and supported by our colleagues at the ICTA, at Lumma, and at Barco. And my colleague Maureen Suttle is going to be giving a quick presentation on that initiative on Monday morning to just introduce what this is, the spirit behind it. And Lumma is going to be very much involved in this initiative over at CineEurope with all of the honorees of the Blue Ribbon list, which you can find now on our website, boxofficepro.com. You can pick up your certificate at the Lumma booth at the trade show. That booth number is 301. Am I correct about that, Rolando?
That's correct. And, listen, we are so proud and happy to be a part of the sponsorship of the Blue Ribbon. I think when you first approached us on this, we were all in. I think that it's important to recognize exhibitors for their amazing work and investments and their innovations or where they're taking the industry. And that's important. And I think that had not happened to the extent of where the Blue Ribbon is taking it. We have a great function on Tuesday afternoon between 3:15 and 4 o'clock. We have a reception to actually celebrate some of these individuals that are going to be going to CineEurope to actually get their certificates, between 3:15 and 4. And we will also be in the booth. So if you can't make it during that time, please stop in. We're going to have them for you. and is such a great and most important item that is being done to really recognize exhibitors for their hard work, dedication, and belief in this industry with their investments. So we are very, very pleased to be a small part of this in our sponsorship of the Blue Ribbon and the functions that we're going to be doing on Tuesday afternoon.
And once again, if your cinema did receive a mention in our inaugural Blue Ribbon lists this year, don't forget to stop by that Lumma booth number 301 at the CineEurope trade show to pick up your certificate for your theater. Get in touch with me, Daniel at boxoffice.com, in case you can't make it to CineEurope. We'll be giving out these certificates throughout the years at the major conventions throughout the world for the rest of the calendar year. And don't forget to check in on boxofficepro.com to submit a cinema for next year's edition of the Blue Ribbon list. You can submit as many theaters as you'd like, $0. It is completely free to submit a theater. And if it passes our judging panel, you'll see it recognized when we announce next year's list at CinemaCon 2027. Looking at the rest of this schedule, Rolando, we've got great studio participation, as is usually the case with our friends over at Film Expo. HDR by Barco is going to be presenting footage in that format throughout the week. If you haven't checked out that technology, it is a stunning way to see movies. You're seeing that HDR by Barco presentation being integrated into more exhibitor-branded premium large formats like View Epic, like Regal RPX, like Cinemark XD. You're seeing it show up on Alamo Draft House in select locations. So it's great to see that growing as well. And in terms of panels, we already talked about Lumma's presence. We already talked about the box office company's presence. There's going to be great discussions, not only on F&B from our partners over at Coca-Cola, but a number of sessions on AI and its presence in the industry. And finally, of course, the typical things that we always talk about at these events: operations, best practices, trends, and tendencies. So I wanted to close up the conversation with you, Rolando, talking about some of those trends that you've been able to pick up on so far this year. We mentioned it at the beginning of the episode. It's been an overperformance. It's a happy welcome back. I think every exhibitor is ecstatic by the results so far. What are the main trends that you would single out as the most positive so far, halfway into 2026?
Look, I think we've talked about a couple of those, but I mean, to kind of reinforce them, one is I think the surprise, right, of how the industry is really picked up this year. And now what the forecasting looks like for the finish of 2026, which is much greater. And that is being recognized by the vendor community, by the financial community, by the investments that exhibitors are starting to make. So that is one key component. The second is that within those investments, now you're seeing exhibitors invest into more premium formats, right? Because they're recognizing that there is a value proposition that the consumer continues to seek out. As you mentioned, the HDR with Barco, and I love what they're doing as well. But you also look at the premium formats and you look at our 4D motion and our Magnify 8 and the impact that now as a premium format, we're actually doing equal to, and in some cases better than just the large screen format. So you're starting to see a trend that what's being described as a premium format has a lot of different definitions, including, the product offering that we have. I think that the final item is, I would say that everybody's going to be going in finally into a convention, especially CineEurope, with a very positive frame of mind, right?
Oh,
You
that
talk
makes all
about
the
all the
difference. That makes all the difference at these events. We've gone to enough conventions when the market is down and everybody looks like it's 3 a.m. and their toddler just woke them up. When the box office is working, these events are that much better to attend.
Well, exactly, that what that means is, look, it's positive. So people are going to be more receptive to listening to new ideas, to best practices, to the film companies and what they have, their slate ahead and their beliefs in the marketing and in their product. It becomes a more enjoyable dialogue that's going to take place, right? People are going to be going in very positive, and that will continue into the rest of the conventions, the rest of this year. And that's not just building momentum with the audiences and the films on how they're doing, by the way, is building momentum within ourselves, meaning exhibition in the vendor community in our belief that we always knew that our industry was going to be coming back. And so I'm very happy about the programming at CineEurope. I think, Laura and Phil do a fabulous job. Film Expo does incredibly, I mean, they just put on a tremendous show at CineEurope. So we're very excited. And by the way, I failed to mention that we love working with Boxoffice, and what they're doing for this industry. And you guys should be properly recognized because you're a key communication point for this industry on what's taking place, the trends, the recognitions, and your innovative way to look at the blue ribbon panel is outstanding. It really speaks to the commitment that Boxoffice and you, Daniel, and Stan, and Patricia, all of you have as a commitment to this industry. So thank you.
No, we appreciate the support. I think it's going to be a party of sorts in Barcelona. Always good to go in a World Cup year, which, by the way, I don't know how you talk the Lumma team to go as Argentina is defending its World Cup title, to go work for a week in Barcelona. You guys are doing something right over there. The sales should be working if you got Argentinians to step away from that event for even for a week. But
and going to Spain to actually, if you're an Argentinian in Spain, you're not necessarily going to be welcome, by most of the European countries.
A slightly hostile territory. I won't say Mexico isn't part of that hostile territory. I say that.
There you go. There you go. So is Mexico. Hey, but they pull one off. They started off on a great place.
You're talking about, attending events in a good mood. I'm in a good mood in the summer of a World Cup until Mexico gets eliminated, which, it's a short window you catch me on here, Rolando. No, but when we talk about celebrations, I do want to say before we end this episode, a quick recognition of the award winners at this year's event, some great executives and a great circuit. We've got Jeff Goldstein from Warner Brothers heading over global distribution over there. I talked to him in our magazine that you'll be able to find at CineEurope, a great career-spanning conversation with Jeff, who has seen everything in this business, all in one company man, very rare to find in this business. We also have an interview with Phil Clapp, the president and CEO of the UKCA and the outgoing president of Unique. He will stay at the UKCA, and you will definitely see him at a lot more CineEuropes in the future. But it's a great conversation about his tenure with Unique over the years. And finally, I can't forget to give my colleague Rebecca Pahle a huge, huge thumbs up on a wonderful profile article on Ukraine's Multiplex, the largest cinema chain in that country, and how they've been able to survive through the crisis that they've been embroiled in. A wonderful, inspirational story. You'll be able to find all of this coverage in the CineEurope 2026 edition of Box Office Pro. You'll recognize it. It's got the Lumma technology on the cover, easy to spot. Pick one up at the media stands or go over to the Lumma booth, number 301 of the trade show. They'll be able to give you one in person there as well. Rolando, thank you so much for joining us, and I can't wait to see you again in person soon.
Thank you, my friend. And listen, you have a wonderful weekend, and we look forward to a fabulous CineEurope. Look forward to seeing everybody there.